All right, everybody. Good late evening. We'll go ahead and call it the late evening. Usually don't post videos this late, but the combine requires you to do some creative things sometimes. So we got one more position that went at the combine today, and unfortunately, it was a group that was lacking many of their top prospects. I know that there were a few guys like Mason Taylor that didn't do the 40, but did do some of the other more abstract drills. But there were some guys who I didn't see at all. I didn't see any Colston Loveland. I didn't see any Tyler Warren. So with those two guys off the board, it's just not going to be that fun. That's not to say it was all bad, but man, was it a little bit of a letdown. This is supposed to be a good tight end class, but you take those two guys out and you could definitely be pushed into believing otherwise. I'll put it to you that way. So tight ends, definitely an interesting position for the Seahawks to consider. I think that the first thing that really jumps out to you is this was not a very fast moving tight end collection. Now, let's understand something. The peak for a tight end in NFL history, in combine history, over the last 20 plus years is about 4.4. That is the best of the best. We've had a few tight ends run a 4.4. I think Vernon Davis ran a 4.4. So the standard is a little bit lower. You're not going to have a tight end running a 4.3. That being said, we didn't have a single tight end run a 4.5. We didn't have a single tight end run a 4.6. The fastest tight end that ran today was Terrance Ferguson at 4.63. And there were only three guys that ran a sub 4.7. So right off the bat, you're like, where's the sizzle here? And the answer is there wasn't that much sizzle. Ferguson, I didn't know of him as a particularly fast guy in college, and he's not particularly fast. He just was fast compared to everybody else. So right off the bat, it's like, it's a little bit deflating because the 40-yard dash is the first thing you see from these guys. And to know that you're not going to have any super freaks. Now, that doesn't mean they're bad players, but right away, you just kind of feel the air getting sucked out of the balloon. Again, it is important to note there was no Warren. Warren probably would have run sub 4.6. And I think Loveland probably would have been around there. I don't think he's known to be particularly fast, but still, man, this was disappointing. I mean, Terrance Ferguson, credit where credit is due. He actually had a really good combine. He's a decent size, almost 250 pounds, almost 33-inch arms, 6'5", and his 10-yard split was good, right? He had a good 10-yard split. I think actually it was right near the top. Yeah, it was tied for number one for all tight ends. So credit where credit's due. He had a nice vert, 39 inches, 10-foot 2-inch broad's pretty good too. So I'm not knocking the dude. I think the dude did himself some favors today, but this was very close to the best that we had. So right off the bat, it's just like you got to lower your standard a little bit, I think. Harold Fannin Jr. This is a guy who set like an FBS record for tight end production in one season. And first of all, he's a little undersized. He's 241, 6'3". You usually would like your tight end to be a little bit bigger than that. And then he runs a 4.71. Like that's just not really gonna get you where you want to be as a tight end prospect in the NFL right now. A 1.56 10-yard split isn't very good. Well, that's pretty good, I guess, especially comparatively. Like if you look at the 10-yard splits, you can see that it was actually tied for third place, but it's still not remarkable. He didn't jump that well. It was decent. I will say he had a nice 3-cone and 20-yard shuttle, sub 7 seconds on the 3-cone, sub 4.4 on the 20-yard shuttle. So, okay, credit where credit's due for that, but man, this was kind of disappointing. This is a guy who cannot block, really. He's not a blocker. He's not known to be a blocker. So Fannin needed to show some playmaking ability, and he still has it, but this definitely brings the ceiling down just a little bit. I'm just going to say it. So that was a letdown. Someone who didn't let down, though, I've got to give this guy a shout out because the Seahawks have met with him. This would be one of the bright spots today at tight end, Jalin Conyers. Remember, this is the guy who can supposedly do tight end, fullback, and even a little bit of quarterback. He's big, 260 pounds, long arms, pretty decent size, workable size. Not really that slow either. Like 4.74, I mean, it's not good, but Harold Fanon Jr. was 3/100ths of a second faster. So if that's the trade you're making where you've got 19 extra pounds, I'll take that. 10-yard split's pretty awful, but he jumped fairly well. He had a sub 7-second 3-cone drill, which was right near the top for tight ends, or 2.7 20-yard shuttle, which was actually way better than Fanon. And this guy is not supposed to be like some great playmaker. This guy is not supposed to be somebody who goes out there and catches 10 balls a game or anything like that. He's a utility player. He's a blocker. He's kind of almost a gadgety type player. So I actually thought Conyers tested really well. I liked what he brought to the table. So I'd say that was pretty good. But then you've got a guy like Gunnar Helm, who had a chance to really make some hay. And I'm sorry, this was very disappointing. 53 on the athleticism score by Next Gen Stats. I don't see very many players that get drafted that have athleticism scores that low. I don't. 53 is right near the lowest number I've seen from any NGS breakdown. 6'5", 241 pounds, so he's kind of lean, which that can be overcome, I guess. 32 3/4 inch arms is fine, but a 4.8, 440, and his first 40 was plus 4.9. The dude moves like a slug. I don't know what was going on. He didn't look that slow on a football field, but he got to run the 40 twice, right? And he barely beat out 1.7 on the 10-yard split. So for a guy who's 241, that's really, really not going to cut it. 30-inch vertical, 3-cone, 7.15. Not really what you're hoping for a smaller tight end. A 20-yard shuttle is okay, but man, this one I think might be the biggest disappointment of the day for a tight end. Lean, underweight, and slow. Now, I'm not saying this is the end-all be-all, but this is going to put people off of Gunnar Helm a little bit, I think. This is going to be hard for him to defend. He's not known for his blocking prowess. He's a receiving tight end. So if you've got a 4.8, 440 at 241 pounds at tight end, that tells me you're going to have some issues getting open in the NFL. Like, there's like Will Dissly's out there, right? Will Dissly ran about this 40 time. I think Will Dissly's 40 time was right around the 4.82, 4.83. So there is precedence, but that's kind of the thing. Will Dissly was drafted mostly on his traits as like a blocker. He wasn't viewed as being some great playmaking tight end. Will Dissly, I don't think when he got drafted was like 240 pounds. He wasn't this lean. You were drafting him because you thought he could block. And that's one thing I'll say. They did like the sled drill. A lot of these guys looked good. In fact, the only guy who really didn't look good to my memory was Harold Fanon Jr. When he tried to do the sled drill, he ended up like sliding the drill sideways because he couldn't like push it downfield. And there were one or two other guys who also showed a lack of strength. But for the most part, these players did do a pretty good job on the sled drill. But a player like Gunnar Helm, there's only so much you're going to get out of your blocking ability when you're this small. So, very disappointed here. The only other guy that I really thought stood out one way or the other would be Mitchell Evans of Notre Dame. He came in with almost 260 pounds on his frame. So he's a bigger guy, which is exciting. And this is a guy who's expected to be a very good blocker as well. So put that in your back pocket. And yeah, his times were a little bit slow, but they weren't that much slower than anybody else's, right? Like if you got Mitchell Evans at 258 running a 4.74, and then you've got a guy like Fanon who weighs significantly less running slightly, and I do mean slightly faster, I think you feel better about Mitchell Evans. And 1.55 10-yard split's not bad either, so his immediate acceleration is pretty decent. That would be something that I think was good that came out of today. But other than that, man, it's like, for the most part, the things that I liked seeing from this tight end group were the blockers. Guys like CJ Dipre and Jackson Hawes and maybe Joshua Simon. These guys should be really good blockers based on my understanding of their skill set, based on what I've seen from them. But in terms of like athleticism, Terrance Ferguson is probably about as good as it gets. So yeah, really disappointing group. Again, it's mostly because a lot of the top guys sat it out, but that doesn't change the fact that it's disappointing, right? All right, so new positions tomorrow. And if you're watching this video right after I uploaded it, then it's getting late. Go to bed. Well, for some people, it's not that late. For me, it is. And if you're watching this the next day or some day after, thank you for checking it out a little bit late. And we will be doing more Combine stuff tomorrow. Go Hawks. And it's going to be really fun today with the quarterbacks. I know this isn't a great quarterback class, but still fun. So tune in and go Hawks.